Hey, welcome back to Lady Tradie. Today I am reupholstering a blanket box for a good friend of mine. This blanket box is originally made with fake leather, which is all peeled off. So I'm going to reupholster this today after I give it a really good clean, and I'll show you some tips to do that yourself, because if you're like me, you might have a few of these products yourself in your home that you want to have a go at recovering, because even though the outside is starting to peel off, the actual item itself is still quite structurally sound. So if you're also going to have a go at this at some of your own things at home that may have been in this fake leather or a suede that's worn thin, the first thing is give it a good vacuum. So you don't want to be putting new fabric on something that's dirty, because you can feel that through the fabric. But also if it is like this and it is fake leather, I just get the Dyson out and give it a really good vacuum, and in doing so it actually peels a lot of that off. Next thing I need to do is unscrew the feet, which are on the bottom. I'm going to spray paint them black just so that they tie in a little bit better and fresher and not knocked around as much. So I'm going to unscrew that now. I found it pretty funny that there's a tag underneath that gives you instructions on leather care when it's not even leather. There you go. What you want to do to hide the raw edge is you want to have it on the inside of the box, and then about 1 centimeter down you're going to staple it. Okay, so I'm about 1 centimeter down and I'm stapling that fabric on. Now I'm going to staple roughly every 3 centimeters. So that means a 2 centimeter gap in between. Remaining about 1 centimeter down from that edge, and I'll show you why. So now, obviously I will do the entire length, but now I can fold my fabric back over the lip, and I have this nice seam-free, staple-free edge. So this is what the inside looks like, stapled along that inside edge, and then that allows you to bring that fabric over and have a nice clean finish. If you get a staple in the wrong spot, so I've just done one a little too low, best thing to do is have a flathead screwdriver, and you can just pop it out and then do it again. Attach it to the underside. Now I'm just loosely doing this for now because I need to do it properly, but I just want to pin it so that it's in the correct position for me to do the sides. But I do it this way because I'm not cutting a pattern or anything like that. So I'm just going to loosely tack it. now I have a better idea of what I have to work with on each side. So I want to wrap this around. There'll be a seam, but it will be on the back this way. Okay, so you can see how it's going to just wrap beautifully around like that. That's the goal. The tricky bit is that you have these excess seams. So we want to tuck that seam away nice and neatly. You want a diagonal seam join. Now it might just mean that you have to play around a little bit with it until you are happy with the position of that. You also don't want to push and tuck so much fabric away that you end up with bulky lumps underneath. So when you're doing that seam, remember to tuck the internal edge in as well before you staple. So what I've done is I've folded the fabric under and tucked it in, attempting to make sure that it's nice and straight and not leaving any bulky lumps underneath. Now, to make sure it stays this way and it doesn't slip, under here I'm going to staple. That way you can't even see that staple in the end. Okay, so that'll sit there nicely. I'm also making sure I'm tucking that bit on the inside in nicely as well. Now often you staple it at this point, and then when you do the side you might find that you have to remove that, pull it a little tighter and then re-staple. So I'm going to do the same on the other side, and then I'm going to flip it back inside out and continue with this raw edge. I've got it positioned, this is the underside, so the bottom. Similar to what I did on top, I'm going to hem it basically. So if you're into sewing, similar process essentially. This time it doesn't matter if you can see the staples, but you don't want this raw edge that's going to fray. Now this is currently too long, I need to cut it about here, but just so I can show you what I'm going to do, I'm going to fold it over so it has a hem, tuck that raw edge inside, and then staple along the fold. Now obviously when you're stapling on that fold, you want to make sure it's where the timber is, you're not just stapling into this loose fabric underneath. So I'm going to cut this around here. That way it will provide me with a hem about 2 centimeters in width that will fold under and then tuck away nicely. Something I have learned along the way when doing reupholstery is that don't just say, oh, here's my starting point and I'm going to just staple along like this. I actually tack it central, middle, end, and then if it's nice and it's sitting well, then I will go back in and fill the gaps. That way if it's wrong or I don't like it, it's much easier just to remove 2 or 3 tacks rather than lifting out 20 or 30 staples. Okay, so we want to do a similar process as we did on top with the seams underneath. The foot, once I put it back on, is going to cover all this anyway, so it's not as important. So I'm going to continue folding that seam under, and then I have this excess in the corner. Now I'm just going to tuck it under, tuck it up, and then have a nice neat seam. Okay, so we're at this back seam now. The material is going to wrap around that corner so it looks nice on the corner, and I'm going to put a seam in along here at the back. So you're not actually going to see this bit. We will make that bottom corner look nice and tidy, but the rest of it you're not even going to see. So what I do is I just staple it, just loosely. I'll show you. You're not going to see any of this, because what we will do is we will get the fabric which will be used on the back, and we will do what we did on the inside where we fold the seam over. So just for example, this is not the piece that I'm using, but for example, I will come along and do this and then fold that back over, so you just have a nice neat seam on the back without visible staples. So I've laid out another piece of fabric and I'm just going to cut it to the size of the back of the box, allowing for enough of a hem at the bottom to tuck in and away, and the same here, allowing for enough to tuck in and away. Okay, so I'll pre-cut that and then I'm going to staple. Now, so I've actually unscrewed the top so that I can go all the way around and then screw the hinges back in on top of the new fabric. It's the easiest way to do it. It's easier to go to the effort of unscrewing than it is to try and tuck fabric around. So what I need to do is I need to cut my fabric to the correct length. So like always, I'm leaving a fair bit of overhang so I can hem that nice and neatly on all four sides, but I'm going to cut the excess off around that. Size of the top only. Now the top feels really good and uniform without any dips. Okay, if that padding underneath feels a bit thick in those seams, you can just remove a little bit. Don't forget that as people actually sit on this, it will all compress and flatten out a little anyway. Okay. I'm going to lift it up and put the hinges all back on through the new fabric, and then I'm going to continue going through and stapling that down. I've only just tacked it at this stage. Once I've got it on and it's more stable, it'll be much easier to staple it down. Then all I need to do is tidy the corners as I did on the bottom of the box and staple down the last two sides, and we're done. Very similar to earlier, just like making a bed really. You want to neatly tuck it away and fold it under. So again, I'm just going to tack this in the position that it needs to be. Oops. Just tack it. And then I need to deal with this. There's a lot of fabric here, there's a lot of bulk that I'm going to have to get rid of. Okay. So I'm just folding it so I have a nice, neat corner seam. That's the easy part. The hard part is getting all of this stuff tucked away nicely. So I'm going to fold it under and tuck it as far under as possible. And then again, I will tack that in place and do my inside seam here as well. The good thing about using patterned fabric is that even when your folds aren't, perfect or neat, it's actually quite hard to tell or notice. You might notice, but only because you are the creator. Other people probably wouldn't have a clue. Okay, so where it's thicker, when you've folded things, you really want to reinforce that area, but not so much that there are so many staples it looks terrible and tacky. Now staples come loose because it's thick. It's good to put some underneath so they're not seen. So that's looking nice. There we go, nice and secure. And I will do the same with the bottom corner, and then we'll be done. As you can see, the seam inside is all folded away nicely. Hinges reattached, edge seam is the same. So I'll give it a clean out, and it is complete. And there you have it, guys. It's complete. Job done.